Hearty shalom to you. Jeffrey Seif here, looking at the book of Acts, and we're finding a rabbi on the move. We're finding as well that he's experiencing resistance from well-intended people that are minded to tell him not to do what the Lord has put on his heart to do. And I want to explore that with you. And as we're looking at some of this, I just want you to think for a moment of the kind of determination that it takes to get anything done in this world, dogged determination. That's particularly true in a religious sense. I mentioned that is Paul is saying hello and then he's saying goodbye. And we're told in chapter 21 that he tears himself away from them. I like that effusive language. It underscores the closeness. Paul is making his way. We're told he's going to be in Rhodes. And by the way, I have been to Rhodes. I remember the last time we went to dock there, but the seas were so choppy on an ocean liner. We went into the port and just turned around. The captain said, look, it's just too dangerous. Can you imagine on a ship sometime back? Travel on the Mediterranean is very precarious. In any case, they go to Tyre in Syria, and we're told in verse 4 that they're there, and he spent time with the disciples who beckon him. They kept telling Paul through the Ruach, through the Spirit, not to set foot in Jerusalem. It's interesting, they don't want him to go to Jerusalem. He gives voice to what he's minded to do. And his biographer, Luke, says, they kept telling Paul through the Spirit not to go to Jerusalem. It's interesting that Paul feels the Spirit beckoning him to do something, and then his biographer says others are claiming the Spirit not to do it. And this you'll see as we work our way through it. As Paul goes to different places, he's always encountering people saying, don't go there. Don't go to Jerusalem. I mentioned that in verse 8, that they come to Caesarea, enters the home of Philip, and stays there, and there's daughters with him. The gift of prophecy is at play in verse 10. A prophet came down from Judea, and he came to us, took Paul's belt, tied his own hands and feet, and said, the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, says this, in this way shall the Jewish people in Jerusalem bind the man who owns this belt and deliver him into the hands of the Gentiles. The word is that he's going somewhere and he's going to get jacked up by the police. I mean, it's just not going to go good for the man. That's enough to turn anybody around. Most people don't go to trouble. I know this, I served as a firefighter for a while. If there's a fire, most people are smart enough to run away from it. Other people are not so smart, they run to it. Similarly, if there's gunfire, most people are smart enough to run away from it. Some people, and I'm thinking of the police, I have a police career too. Some people go to it. It's really counterintuitive. I mention that because Rabbi Shaul hears again and again that there's trouble in River City. Others are trying to dissuade him, but he's not to be dissuaded. And here, there's a prophetic word about something that's going to happen to him that's not going to be good. In verse 12, when we heard these things, both we and the local people urged Paul not to go to Jerusalem. There's trouble there, Paul. We love you. We're all about preserving you. Don't go. Paul isn't going to do it because he's interested in something more important than him. We're looking in verse 13. Paul responded, what are you doing, weeping and breaking my heart? For I am ready not only to be bound, but to die for the name of the Lord Yeshua. Look at that dogged determination. And then, subsequent to that, in verse 14, finally, since he would not be persuaded, we fell silent, saying only, may the Lord's will be done. I said it takes determination to get anything done in life. That's triply true in a religious life, in a walk with the Lord. I think of the kind of determination, frankly, that our leader, Danya Greenberg, an intrepid, bold spirit. She doesn't like it when I talk this way, but maybe she'll never hear the video. And if she does, that's tough. This is my 10 minutes. If you don't like it, fire me. I say what's on my mind. People can say what's on theirs, but she doesn't like it. But truth of the matter is, the reason why there is a Bible society like this, and even something like this coming to you, and that there's a translation. Donnie wasn't a translator that did it. She, encouraged us all to get together like a mother hen, and I was a little more involved in the management of the translation side. But the reality is, if it wasn't for her, there'd be none of this. And it takes a dogged determination where you just persevere against all odds. If you ever drive down the street, you see a big tree. Look at that oak tree. Wow. Before that oak tree ever became that amazing oak tree where kids built forts in it and all the rest, it started off as a little seed, a little acorn or whatever. It had to survive, hot summers and harsh winters and Spartan resources just for that life force to continue to germinate against all odds. It had to survive all the squirrels, that wanted to come and take the seed. What you see is the result of what survived all that. And it just takes that. It just takes that. Whether it's looking to, against all odds, in troubled times, to establish a Bible society, or whatever it is for the Lord, whatever you're building. I mean, if you're just looking to build the worship team in your congregation, it's people are quitting and moving on and upset and this and that, and always stuff. And if you're going to have a great worship team, by God, it's because you are just putting your shoulder to it and you're just doggedly determined to do it. It just doesn't come easy. And I mention that because the text mentions that when Paul was not going to be persuaded by the remonstrations, enough already. Okay, we'll go with it. Well, what I want to leave you here with is just the simple theme that I've been, pressing through this whole of the 8-minute talk so far, and that is the premium on dogged determination. Would it be that you would recover some of that in your life? When I look around at 63, I just know there are a lot of people that began this journey. They're not walking it now, and that's kind of a bummer. They just ran out of steam. They got beat up by one too many circumstances. And I count myself fortunate, frankly, that didn't happen to me. I know, I felt like quitting on more than one occasion because, the highway to heaven is checkered with a lot of road bumps. What can I say? There's spiritual warfare, but it takes that. And in the Jewish world, whenever we finish reading a Torah text, we go chazak. After reading Genesis, chazak. After reading Exodus, chazak. That's the word, be strong. And it takes some of that. And I hope that by virtue of our engaging the text together here in Acts chapter 21, verses 1 through 16, I hope you kind of feel that and you feel yourself a little more motivated to be strong. Well, let's do this again next week. Till then, chazak. Jeffrey Seif.